The Russians have started using cheaply produced glide bombs to terrorize Kharkiv and other Ukrainian cities. They use old Soviet-era ammunition, some with over a ton of explosives.
Welcome to War Tech Talk, Eastern Circle's podcast on military technology innovation, its battlefield application in Ukraine, and geopolitical impact. I'm Anastasiya Shapochkina, president of Eastern Circle's think tank in Paris. In today's episode, we explore a little-covered topic of the war in Ukraine, the impact and role played by guided bombs, also known as smart bombs or glide bombs. We'll discuss their impact on the battlefield, their production in Ukraine and Russia, and how they compare with Western equivalents. A guided bomb, or Kub in Ukrainian, is a weapon weighing up to 3 tons and carrying 200 kilos of explosives, enough to destroy any target. Since before the annexation of the Crimea and the incursion into the east of Ukraine in 2014, Russia has been investing time and resources to make the dome bombs smart by adding a navigation system and allowing to launch the bomb from a plane far into the target territory. The absence of a mortar gives the guided bomb stealth, allowing Russia to use it as a tactical weapon to punch through Ukraine's company and battalion-level defensive positions and strike tactical structures. It also creates a surprise effect of a sudden explosion by a quiet bomb, terrorizing civilians and sowing havoc on the battlefield. To understand this technology, its cost and effect, the threat posed by Russian mass production, and the challenges to its manufacturing in Ukraine, I sat down with Ivan, the member of the Ukrainian Medoid Design Bureau. This interview was recorded in Ukrainian. My colleague Bohdan gives voice to the English translation. Ivan, welcome to War Tech Talk. Let us start with the definition of this technology. For the non-initiated among us, please explain what a guided bomb is and how it works.
We are talking about a guided air bomb, which we can divide into 2 subunits. The first is the bomb itself. The second is a module, which decrypts and controls the bomb. It is called a unified gliding and correction module and allows the bomb to fly over a long distance without being carried by an airplane. The need to use a guided bomb is due to the fact that with the development of the air defense system in Ukraine, modern planes can no longer simply drop the bomb on the target, because the air defense usually kills them in flight and the plane does not reach the target. A simple solution was found: the correction module, which for a small amount of money allows to convert a usual dumb bomb into guided ammunition. Depending on technology, a now smart bomb can fly from 40, 50 to 100 and more kilometers and fall with an accuracy of a few meters to the target. This is what the guided bomb is.
How much payload a smart bomb can carry, and what is the explosive power?
As far as I know, the maximum power achieved by the Russians is the 3-ton bomb. It's a standard aircraft bomb, and there are many of them in storage. The most common weight in Russia is a 500-kilogram bomb. Bombs can be high explosive, incendiary, or cluster. Different types of ammunition are used depending on the tasks that need to be accomplished. Many of the dumb bombs are stored in the warehouses in the former Soviet Union, for example in Russia or Ukraine, as well as in some NATO countries. A typical guided bomb weighs around 500 kilograms, with about 201 kilograms of TNT, making it powerful enough to destroy almost any target. The weapon plays a tactical role. Russia uses them to punch through company and battalion level defensive positions or strike tactical structures.
When did Russia start converting the bomb into smart bomb? When did it scale to reach such strike capacities?
Both Russia and Ukraine accumulated large stockpiles of the so-called dumb bombs during the Cold War. Although there is no precise public information on how many guided bombs Russia inherited from the USSR, the Soviet Union had produced such weapons for a potential conventional war with NATO. About 15 years ago, Russia began developing guided bombs, giving itself the time and resources to scale. So while the weapon existed before the invasion of Ukraine, Russia has been using it on a large scale since 2022 only, when mass production followed development. And the bomb's development continued in parallel with its battlefield use. Since the full-scale invasion, Russia has scaled glide bomb production. According to Ukrainian military intelligence, Russia is set to produce 114,000 guided bombs in 2025 alone. This brings the firing capacity of 300 bombs per day, compared to 150 per day throughout 2024, with a large impact radius.
Describe the effects of a guided bomb on Ukrainian frontline positions. How does a glide bomb impact compare with conventional artillery fire and strike drones, in terms of blast, structure damage, survivability, and psychological impact?
As Ukrainian military say, it can make you lose your mind. People simply can't handle it psychologically. With artillery, soldiers are already accustomed to a pattern. They know where to hide, and they can judge how many explosions there are. They can tell whether it was a real strike or a correction fire. In contrast, a guided bomb arrives silently and fast. In the final stage, it has no engine. You can't hear it. When it explodes, especially above ground, the resulting shock wave is extremely powerful and destroys a wide area. Frontline troops report that those who can't withstand it feel the urge to flee. People try to band together, increasing exposure and vulnerability. When guided bombs are used, there is virtually no chance to survive. Even without a direct hit, the psychological impact prevents defenders from holding positions. In a fortified stronghold, a system designed to withstand bombardment, an arrival of a guided bomb makes survival impossible. Even if someone survives the first strike, there is nowhere safe from the next one. Everything can be destroyed. If in the same strike napalm is used, all positions within hundreds of meters will burn, setting everything on fire.
If these bombs are available and effective, why does Ukraine not retaliate by using the bombs from its own warehouse?
The problem is that at the outset of the invasion there were no guided bombs in Ukraine at all. Very few people are developing the bomb now. There was no development at all in 2022-2023. Why? This is a question. Because a 500-kilogram bomb is a very important means of damage on a tactical level, and even on an operational tactical level. Such a bomb can replace a large number of 152-155 mm artillery shells, which were in short supply in Ukraine in 2023-2024, when Europe was struggling to deliver even half of its promised ammunition.
We understand that a certain number of shells were delivered to Ukraine later. Ukraine has received 3 million shells from NATO countries by now. It just took them twice as long, more time than they had planned.
At the beginning of the war, Russia, if you remember, allowed itself to use an echelon of ammunition, hundreds of thousands. They just bombed our forces. By the end of 2023-2024, tactics have changed a lot. Ukraine began to use a large number of drones, anti-battery devices, which allowed it to detect the artillery of the enemy and to quickly destroy it. At the moment, as far as I know, it is not so effective to use artillery, because it must be a very mobile artillery installation. It goes out, makes 3, 4, 5 shots, and it has to leave. Otherwise, it is detected and the drones flies in, and that's it. There are no more shells. This no longer allows you to have carpet artillery duels as in 2022, and the present and number of artillery no longer plays such a decisive role as it was at the beginning of the war. Considering all this, as well as the shortage of ammunition, this bomb is a very important tool to stop or destroy the positions of the enemy.
What are the mechanics and economics of a guided bomb compared to artillery?
A typical guided bomb weighs around 500 kilograms, of which about 200 kilograms is actual explosive. By contrast, a 155 mm artillery shell contains only about 10 to 11 kilograms of explosive. That means one guided bomb delivers roughly the same explosive effect as 20 shells. Now consider the costs. A single 155 mm shell on the market runs between 3,800 and 4,000 euros. Multiply that by 20 and the firepower equivalent of one bomb costs more than 75 euros in shells. Meanwhile, the guided bomb itself costs about 30,000 euros. In other words, for less than half of the cost, Russia can deliver the destructive power of 20 shells in a single strike.
What is the tactical application of a guided bomb? And how does Ukrainian technology compare to the Russian one?
Guided bombs are intended to destroy company and battalion level strong points, key fortification and buildings. They strike a defined area on the ground. The version Ukraine is developing is set to detonate roughly 10 meters above the surface, which increases the blast radius and anti-personnel effect. By contrast, the Russian variant is designed to penetrate and detonate in the ground, creating a large crater but reducing effective range and the area of damage because much of the blast is absorbed by the earth. In short, air burst detonation increases surface area damage. Ground penetrating detonation produces deeper localized destruction.
Can you tell us about the launch capacity? Given Ukraine's smaller fleet and the absence of dedicated strike jets such as Su-34 or 35, which can be fitted with old Soviet-type bombs, how many guided bombs can Ukraine realistically deliver? Are there alternative launch platforms? For example, modified fighters or attack aircraft or unmanned systems that can carry and release these weapons?
First, at the moment, Ukraine uses Western models of guided bombs, JDAMs in particular, but these are Western models and their cost is much higher. The simplest JDAM costs more than 35,000 euros. Second, because this is a Western system, Western countries dictate how they may be used. Third, Ukraine gets few of them. This brings the question of parity. When the Russians drop 150 guided bombs a day and we can drop only 10, it does not allow Ukraine for large-scale use of the weapon enough to stop the Russian offensive because JDAMs are reserved for more important purposes, not for destroying strong points or infantry. Western models are used against warehouses, certain command points, and so on. Ukraine cannot rely on them. To stop a Russian offensive, we would need to drop 100-150 guided bombs a day. Therefore, it makes sense to produce them ourselves. Furthermore, a JDAM bomb weighs 120 kilograms. The explosive is even smaller. What Ukraine is developing is a smart bomb with an explosive power equivalent to the average Russian bomb. As for the planes, the Russians have MiG-31s and Su-34s. Su-34s were specifically developed for the use of guided bombs. In addition, these guided bombs are integrated into the aircraft's weapon system. The pilot identifies the target, receives the target's position on the onboard computer, and coordinates the strike. In addition, because our air defense are much weaker than the Russian ones, they can release a bomb from 10-14 kilometers from the front line. It allows the bomb to fly further 60-80 kilometers into Ukraine. Our situation is a little different. First, our aircraft fleet is outdated, using Su-24s, attack aircraft, and MiG-29s. They do not have, let's say, an onboard system similar to what the Russians have, and it is impossible to integrate the ammunition into the aircraft guidance system. But we got around that by developing a system in which, first of all, we no longer need the integration. The capabilities that account for the bomb's location, trajectory, and target are located in the bomb itself. That's the first thing. Second, it allows us to make the system universal. We can adapt it not only to Soviet-made Su-24s or any other aircraft, but also to F-16s and Rafales. We only have a small amount of work left to do on the mounting system that will make it completely universal.
Talking about differences in usage of guided bombs, what countermeasures are built into the bomb to defeat jamming, spoofing, or cyber interference?
If you noticed, when the Russians began to use these guided bombs at the start of the war, they had very high accuracy and caused a lot of damage. At the end of 2024, there were reports that they became less effective. Why? Because the Russians used their bombs with satellite guidance to hit the target. With the increase in the number of Ukrainian electronic warfare system, or EW, on the front line, these bombs began to lose accuracy. We are developing a Ukrainian system that does not use satellite guidance. In other words, we want to resist Russian EW in such a way as to avoid the satellite system that Russian EW can silence. In this regard, we have developed our own guidance system, as well as pre-guidance, which uses modern technologies such as machine vision, artificial intelligence, and an inertial guidance system. That is, a bomb that fixes the launch point and obtains initial coordinates. On the long run, it flies along the fixed coordinates, navigates through EW using the inertial system, and finally switches to the terminal guidance system to hit the target.
I'd like to clarify. You said Russian guided bombs have become less accurate because of electronic warfare. Are there any other ways, besides electronic warfare, to shoot down a guided bomb?
Let's put it in mathematicians' language. War is about mathematics. Of course, you can intercept guided bombs with expensive interceptors like NASAMS or F-16 air-to-air missiles. But then there is an economic equation. A missile can cost 1.5 million euros, while the guided bomb cost the Russians about 30,000-35,000 euros. Can you use NASAMS en masse? Not really. Effective countermeasures include electronic warfare, controlling the front line to disrupt satellite guidance, destroying the aircraft that launch the weapons, and striking the depots where guided bombs are stored to prevent their use. Those are the most effective ways to fight them. Other ideas are ineffective.
Today, a gap exists between the operational need and the production reality of guided bombs in Ukraine. To reach parity with Russia, Ukraine needs to produce 150 guided bombs per day. The armed forces' current request from producers stands at 100 a day. To scale up quickly, to reach the required rates, the bottleneck is procurement, not the technical ability to manufacture. This Eastern Circle's episode of War Tech Talk was prepared by Bohdan Kostiuk and Anastasiya Shapochkina. Production by Elita Gadeva.